I'm Lisa Stone, and you're listening to Parenting Aces. Good morning, and welcome to Season 9 of the Parenting Aces Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and I am thrilled to bring you the Dent family this week, talking not only about their experiences playing tennis themselves, but also their life as academy owners in Keller, Texas, and what it's like working together as father, son, and wife. It is a great conversation. I think you're going to not only be enlightened and learn some things, but also hopefully have some of your own actions confirmed by the Dents as they talk about their relationships and how they manage those in business and off the court as well. But before we jump into that, a couple of announcements. First of all, just wanted to remind y'all about my new live stream on Wednesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, Tennis Takeaways with Lisa and Dewey. That streams live on the Parenting Aces YouTube channel, but is also available on demand anytime, also on our YouTube channel for you to check out. So hope you'll tune in and give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing on that one. Also, I'm going to be in Atlanta this week and really excited to be covering the Rafael Nadal Grigor Dimitrov exhibition on Monday night. If you're going to be at that event, I hope you'll come by and say hello. It is going to be a fun one, and I'm just so thrilled to be able to be there and cover it for the Parenting Aces world. So sit back now, relax, and enjoy this week's podcast with Phil Taylor and Jenny Dent. Dent family, thanks so much for joining us on the Parenting Aces podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're excited to talk. We're excited to talk tennis.
I mean, it's been a while since you and I have talked, Taylor. Phil, I'm so thrilled to have you on. And I feel like between the two of you and Jenny, when she can join us, we're going to have such great perspectives on what's happening in junior tennis development and, you know, in coaching and all those things, academies and all of that. But I would love to start with Phil if we can. And Phil, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us kind of what you're seeing in junior tennis development in the U.S. these days and how things have changed or maybe not changed over the years.
Well, with the U.S. tennis, I think that the USTA is doing a better job in developing the kids. And I think that the academies, there's quite a few good academies around. And I think that with the better coaches coming into the game, the kids are getting better. I'd like to see more of the better coaches getting involved, the former tennis players getting involved with the kids because they have so much knowledge to give. And it'd be a shame if it was wasted.
Agreed. And I mean, you came from the professional tennis world. Of course, your son came from the professional tennis world. What does it take to transition from being a player to being a coach? What makes a good coach?
Oh, well, it's just being observant. I think that when you're out there playing, I think a lot of guys would like to have coached for a while and gone back into tennis because I think you learn a lot more actually when you stop playing. I mean, for a long time, you take advice and you try and work through the game of playing and trying to basically win points, win matches, win prize money. And it's hard to develop a perspective on other people's games or even looking at your own game. You have people helping you. I think once you get into coaching, you tend to step back and take a good look. And then sometimes you wonder, well, I wish I would have known that when I was playing. But in general, I think it's basically just looking at being observant. And there's nothing is, no one shoe size fits all. You have to be able to adapt to the person you're teaching. And as I said, there's no two players look alike. So
right.
I think that, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, no, I just think that, you know, the transition is an easy one, I think, for people who are really interested in developing a good game. And as I said, you find out, like I know a lot more now about tennis than I did when I was playing, just because I've taken a solid interest, and I've had Taylor and a few other good players that I've helped develop. And so when you get interested and you start doing your job, and you understand that, as I said, there's a few exceptions to a rule, but normally the rules are pretty plain for you to see if you just take a good look.
Well, it kind of begs the question, would it make sense for junior players to take on a coaching role of their younger peers as they're coming up? And maybe that would help them do what you're saying, that you think, many pro players wish they could have done, which is go to coaching and then come back and play.
I think that's a great idea. I think that if the kids actually stepped back for a couple of, just did a little bit of once a week, got involved with the lesser kids in the academy, and they took a look, and they actually were into, taking a good look at what's going on with the kids they're trying to help. I'm sure that it would actually open their eyes to what they're doing as well, because once you start teaching, you get a feel for what that person can and can't do, and because as I said, you can't teach everyone the same way. Everyone's a little different, but you tend to seem to figure out real quick what works for them. So it would be a good idea for the young kids to actually help with the academies with the younger kids, because it would help them in the long run.
Right. Phil, going back a few years to when Taylor was a kid and you were working with him, what do you take from that experience now that you guys are running an academy together, and, you're having to not only coach the kids out there, but I'm assuming, and we'll jump into this in a little more detail later, but educate the parents as well?
Well, educating the parents is always a challenge to a certain extent. I mean, it's hard to go back, and being a parent of a top class tennis player like Taylor, in the long run, I basically said to him, listen, I'd rather be your father than your coach. And I think about 19 or 20 years old, we're great friends to this day, and I'm really proud of that. But I think when parents get too involved, look, some things work out, but people don't realize, they only see the good things that happen sometimes. They don't realize that there's many thousands of parents who would be better off stepping back and letting their kids, take the reins and move forward themselves. And you get a good coach, and you trust the coach. And I think it'd be a lot better in many circumstances where the parents step back. As I said, I coached Taylor from the time when he was 11 or 12 up until he was about 19, 20. And I was glad to get rid of him, to tell you the truth, because no, because everyone develops their own opinions. And look, maybe you're on the same track, but when it comes from your parents, I think it's tougher. I mean, because they want to please you a lot, and I think that just when you step back and you take a look and you just let them run their own course, I think it works out better. Although he did come back to me about a few years later, and this is a great story. I'll tell you a quick story. He said he'd been injured at Wimbledon. He'd lost to Ljubicic, and he hurt his wrist. Came back, and he was working out a lot. And he said to me, Dad, can you help me, a little bit? And I said, yeah, fine, yeah, great. So we he hadn't played a tournament from Wimbledon, and we worked. He started to play a little bit, and then we got to the US Open, and he got to the round of 16s, and he lost to Agassi, I think, in 4 sets, and he had a good chance there. Hurt his leg a little bit, but recovered from that. Then we went to Bangkok. He won Bangkok. He beat the number 1 player in the world at that stage. I think it was Ferrero. And then we traveled straight to Moscow, and he won that tournament, which is incredibly hard to do. To win 2 ATP tournaments in a row is fantastic. And so we went from he's laughing in the background here, because then we went straight to Paris for the Paris indoors, and we get there, and he said to me, we've traveled all that way over there. And he said, okay, Dad. He said, thanks very much. I don't need you anymore. So he sent me home. He fired me. He fired me. So he fired me. So, no, but look, as far as the parents go, I think, everyone's got to take a look at how they're handling their kids. And, I think it's important for the kids because you want to, honestly, when they finish their career, however short or long it is, you want to be friends. You got to make sure that you're friends with them because I've seen too many families broken apart because they got way too involved with their kids' tennis.
Yeah, yeah. Taylor, what's your take on the whole firing incident?
It's a totally different story.
Hashtag I fired my dad.
I told him just to kind of mind his own business and grab me some waters, and then he thought he was a coach all of a sudden, So, it's just what it is. It's exactly what Dad said. I believed when I was, 12 years old, all the way through to now, without any doubt, that my dad's one of the best coaches in the world. I mean, he's worked with some of the biggest names in tennis. He developed me. But the fact of the matter is, when a parent gets involved, there's just this emotional thing. I mean, I've never seen it work out amazingly well on tour. Obviously, you can be a phenomenal tennis player and have a parent involved. We see that on the regular, but behind the scenes, those relationships tend to not be so great. And so I felt like I was older when that happened, and I felt like it was just kind of, I was starting to get those same emotions back, not because my dad was an incapable coach, all to the opposite, all to the contrary. It was just because it was just, man, it's just this father-son thing is rearing its head again, and we have such a great relationship, and he said it at a young age, I'd rather be your dad than your coach, and that's all it was. I feel like it's very underestimated how hard it is to be parent and coach at the same time. In fact, actually, to add on to that, one of the best relationships between parent and not necessarily coach, but parent and supporter is actually, Jared Donaldson and his father, Courtney Donaldson. I thought that relationship was amazing, to be honest with you. And the secret to that was Courtney is very supportive of Jared. He always finds the silver lining. He doesn't lie to Jared, but he finds a way to kind of frame the situation in a positive light and paint a picture forward. And it was always an encouraging thing, in my opinion, for Jared to be around Courtney. And I think parents, when you're in the thick of it, when you're in the middle of the fight and you're in the middle of the battle, it's tough to find that because you'll probably almost want it more for your kid, your child, than they want it for themselves at some stages, just because you want to see them succeed and be greater than you were. And so I really commend, Courtney, for being able to find that way every single time I was around.
Yeah, that's a unique family. Very special, for sure. So now that you guys are working together again in a very different capacity, how has your relationship as father and son, but also as business partners, developed and helped you to create this really successful tennis academy in Texas?
Well, I think the biggest part of it for me, honestly, is we added a third element to the whole picture. We got my wife, Jenny, involved, and she is smarter than the both of us combined. She's more organized than both of us combined. And she's really, she's probably the best one to answer that question because she is really the magic formula behind the success of the academy. So, Jenny, what do you have to say about that?
I will say I am smarter and I am more organized.
Girl power, absolutely.
No. The academy, I honestly, I feel like the academy wouldn't survive outside of, without the three of us together. And I kind of feel like I'm a little bit of the glue that holds the academy together. Taylor and Phil are very high in demand. And they work very, very hard. I try to do my very best to just keep it all. Everyone is not one person is working harder than the other. That we're all spreading it out. I try to give as much as I can, as much as the customers will allow Phil to take a break. I know he sometimes feels like he's out of the court a lot more than he wants to be right now. I think he likes to spend time with our son playing golf, and I love that too, because it's not me, but we just make it work with juggling. It's a juggling act. It is a constant juggling act, and I think I just try and help bring order and balance to that.
Do you find, as I'm using air quotes here, the outlaw of the family, that that you're able to have a perspective and maintain a perspective that's a little more balanced, because there's not that tension of, oh, this is my parent, oh, this is my kid, and you can kind of, I don't know, moderate the whole relationship and from the business side of things?
I think we all do a really good job with that. Taylor's got a very, one of the things that I really appreciate with him, and I've learned so much just even teaching side by side.
She steals all my stuff.
He has such a way of simplifying things, and I really feel that that's important for students. I remember growing up myself through junior tennis, having such a clear understanding of what I was trying to do on the court, and I think that tennis can get complicated if you try and if you don't try and simplify. It can get very complicated. There are too many circumstances where one thing could work in one situation, but another could work in another, and it's not just sort of a blanket rule all the time. I think that just comes with experience, but the kids need simple concepts. They need to understand the fundamentals, and that will take them quite a long way. They don't need to sort of adopt, I should say, more progressive concepts until they're much older. And, it's just because I think some people underestimate how far, just a basic concept done very well can take you in tennis. So that's what we stress here. And sometimes parents kind of scratch their heads and think, well, this can't be all that there is to tennis. And, with our 3 experience at the highest level, we're saying that actually, yeah, it is. You don't need to complicate the game. You really just need to get, a handful of concepts down, and you need to work your butt off and do them better than everyone else. And that will take you really far. I think that Taylor, Phil, and I, our strength in the academy is that we all understand that, and we can approach these concepts from different angles. Taylor is very, he's attuned to ball quality. He is not one who will look at a student and say, technically, I think you should do this, this, and this. He first attacks the ball quality and sort of approaches a student from that perspective. Phil will say, okay, I see your technical, some technical improvements need to be made in these areas. And he can pick them up right away. His eye is impeccable. I come from a standpoint of a little bit more of a physical and a footwork. It's just my passion. So I like to watch the kids, how they move. I like to see, when are they moving? Are they anticipating on time? Are they, are there improvements that can be made there to just the way and how quickly they're reading the ball off the other person's racket? Are they moving the most efficiently? Are they strong? Are they, in and out of corners? How does that all look? And so, I think the 3 of us together combined, we can offer, a little bit of everything, but in the end, we all are working towards the same goal, which is, that which I feel is very important when you're trying to find the right fit for a student, to have sort of all ends buttoned up and not conflicting between coaches.
Yeah, for sure. Taylor, this whole notion of ball quality, can you expand on that for our listeners who might not be familiar with that term?
Yeah, I mean, for me, ball quality, just the phrase kind of sums up what I see when I see a good player versus a kind of a developing player strike a ball. And what it entails is pretty simple. What Jenny says, I like it. I'm not as smart as she is, so I need things nice and simple. And, my eye is accustomed to seeing really good players hit the ball, and that ball looks a particular way. It goes a particular speed through the court. It's got a certain amount of spin on it, and so that ball behaves a certain way through the air. And then you can also factor in accuracy there. One of the most awesome experiences I had with Jared when I was out on the road with Jared, he got to practice with Federer for a month in Dubai, and we talked about just his accuracy alone all month. Federer was his average miss, his cluster of balls was like a 2-foot miss from where he was aiming. So all those things, I would say speed of ball, pace of ball, miles per hour, spin, and accuracy all go into ball quality. I'd say that's my primary passion in developing kids, is because I feel like having a great ball quality is the ultimate insurance policy. The worse your ball quality is, the more accurate you have to be to stay out of trouble. If you hit a really big ball that's tough to deal with, you can hit it in the middle of the court and be pretty safe. Right. So that's kind of my primary passion. And then after that is kind of tactical. What do we do with this ball now that we have it? Because realistically, if I compare it to a different sport, like let's say golf, I'm not a very good golfer. You might be the best caddy in the world and tactically tell me how to play this course, but I'm a terrible golfer. My miss is going to be, 100 yards. So all of the tactics that you have for me don't matter anything. I'm not going to be skilled enough to do it. And that's where ball quality kind of comes in. If you're able to hit the ball somewhat accurately, man, then the game gets really fun. Then the tactics really come into play. But until you get kind of accurate, we're talking about just hitting a consistent, big, aggressive ball in the court and working on our accuracy to get there.
So when y'all get a new player at your academy, how do you evaluate them? And, based on that evaluation, how do you then proceed to take them through the steps?
I would say we obviously, knowing kind of what you know about us now, Jenny looks at their kind of physicalness. Dad looks at, their strokes and kind of what they look like. I look at what type of ball they're generating. We're all going to evaluate them slightly differently, but we're going to come to the same conclusion at the end of the day. We're going to say, okay, how's this player's serve? How's this player's forehand, backhand moving? Honestly, those are the meat and potatoes of tennis, the physical part of tennis. Mentality is another aspect of it. But if we're just talking purely physically, it's, tennis is played 90% with your serve, forehand, backhand, and moving. So if we kind of just analyze that and see what's going on. As far as being in the academy, I feel that the academy's main role is to give the necessary amount of repetitions with oversight, with intensity, for that, to give the player an opportunity to improve. I tell you what, the most humbling thing is coming off the tour and thinking that me, Jenny, and my father are going to churn out little mini professionals left and right. And it's not the case. We pride ourselves on giving the kids an opportunity to improve. What I have realized is that, you can't force a kid to improve. They have to want it and they have to be desperate. Mm-hmm. So we really try hard within the academy hours to give the kids an opportunity to improve. We hit so many balls here. I don't know if we hit more balls than any other academy, but I tell you what, we certainly strive to, because understanding is one thing, but having the skill to repeat it and do it is a totally different thing. And you're not going to get that skill to repeat it without doing it how many times? It's just like outliers. You got to do it 10,000 hours, right? So we really try that, and we try to give the kids, kind of guidelines on what we're looking for, what we want, and all that sort of stuff. And if we see somebody stray too far from the center, then, we try to bump them back on track. But ultimately, I mean, the coach, coaching is great, and coaching has assisted Roger Federer to be Roger Federer, but he's Roger Federer. I mean, he earned it. He did the work. He was passionate about it, and it's just, you had the player has to be the centerpiece. You can't pull the player along. So that's another thing we try to do too. We try to motivate the kids and inspire the kids to really get out here and play hard.
How do you do that?
Fun. Honestly, it's fun. I wish it was more complex and mystical than that. But I tell you what, my experience working with players for as long as I have and seeing players work with my dad is when players are having fun, they try harder. When players are having fun, they play longer. When players are having fun, it's just the intensity is up, their focus is up, they're engaged. When players are not having fun, they're disengaged. And just visualize that. They just don't want to be out there. They, their intensity goes down and so on and so forth. So I think the art of running the academy, not so much in a private lesson, but in an academy setting, the art of running an academy is how do we trick these kids into having fun while doing drills that are super beneficial. It's kind of like the Karate Kid when he's doing all those chores. He doesn't think he's doing anything, but he wasn't having fun when he was doing that. Like, we really want the kids to have fun out here. So we create little games and all this sort of stuff, competitive games to really get their competitive juices going. And I think that's the art, is how do we make something very, very productive, very, very fun at the same time?
Well, I think it is an art. And, the definition of fun, and when some people hear that word fun, their hackles go up because they're like, well, no, I'm paying money for my kid to learn and to get better. And, this isn't playtime. But at the end of the day, tennis is a game. It is a game. And I agree with you. There is a way to have fun and work at the same time.
Well, and here's my thing, and we've been talking about this a lot lately internally in the academy. And Jenny can tell you this. I don't know if my dad would concede this much, but Jenny would tell you this. I'm ultra competitive. Like, I want to win at everything that we do. You know what I mean? And whether that's being a great academy, I want to win. I'm super competitive. So to me, how I see all the great players that I've ever seen get better is they work their butts off. They try hard. So if I can create a drill or a game that gets the job done as far as what I want to work on, what these kids need to work on, and they have fun and their intensity is up and their competitiveness is up and their focus is up, I mean, how is that a lose? That is an absolute win. So for me, I don't play these games to mess around and waste time and fill the day. I play these games so these kids get intense and that their skills actually get better. And that's what I mean when I try to say that I trick them into having fun and just got to be creative on the day. I feel like it's exhausting running the academy because, again, you're dealing with human beings that, I've seen that trick before. Show me something new. And it's like, oh, great. Here we go again, but that's the idea.
Right. And Phil, from your perspective, I mean, you've been in the game a while. How do you feel that kids and parents are kind of changing what they demand, what they expect when they show up to train? I mean, is it any different from it was when you were a kid or from when Taylor was a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, there was no academies. But when Taylor was a young fella, we had an academy. And look, it hasn't changed. Every parent comes along there and they want their kid to improve. And as Taylor said, the idea is how do we do that? And we've played. I know how hard I worked. I know how hard Jenny and Taylor worked to get to where they got to in tennis. And sometimes it's tough. It can be hard. And sometimes I think in an academy setting to where you can get the kids to, as Taylor said, work hard, and if they have a bit of a laugh and a bit of fun, working hard, I think that's really, really good. Because, look, if you're not enjoying the game, the game's hard enough. When you start playing matches, the game is tough. I don't care what anyone says. This is a rough game. It's emotional for the players, the parents, and everyone. And I think that, to get the kids to actually improve, you've got to put it in a way where, they're working hard and they're having fun doing it. Obviously they're going to be disappointed sometimes when they're not having a great day and everything, but the idea is you keep working at it. I mean, there's a lot of the kids who want to become either, professional tennis players or, very good college players. I mean, they have to have that work ethic in there. And I think we help it by giving them a chance to have a rough day and still come back and still work hard and enjoy the road, to get there. It's a long, hard road. I mean, look, you don't go straight from being like an average player to a really good one. You just, it doesn't happen. I mean, you have to work for it. I don't care who, it's Federer or anybody. I mean, I think Federer, I know Taylor knows this. I think he lost his first 10 matches as a pro. He actually talked to Taylor about only playing doubles. So, I mean, everyone goes through a rough time, so, and I don't think a lot of people knew that about Federer. But
interesting. Yeah.
You have to make for the academy's, position, you have to try and get them to work hard every day. And if you go out there and you slog them to death, then they become passive about it. I mean, like they become really, like they're not working hard. They're not taking notice of what's going on. But if you make it a little bit more enjoyable, they're into it. If you get the kids into it, then they're going to improve.
Right. How important is playing tournaments at a young age?
Well, for me, I think you got to play. I mean, from my eyes, I don't know what Jenny and Taylor honestly think. I think they think the same thing, is that you have to play. You have to compete. I mean, playing tennis is tough. I mean, you're out there by yourself, and if you wait too long to learn how to accept all the things that go on in tennis on a tennis court, if you wait too long, it's difficult. So, I mean, I think that, starting off and playing points and playing matches is really good for the game. It's good for the kids because they learn how to take care of themselves too.
Right. How important is winning at a young age?
Winning at a young age, I think competing is more like, if you can look, I think if you walk off a court and you can say to your student or even yourself when you're playing, I competed really, really well. Like I can say to, I know Taylor, because he's my son and we had that transition from 12 to 19. A lot of the times I'd say, listen, if you execute this way, that's all you can do. That's the best you can do. If you can honestly do that, then that's great. Now, you may have a bad day doing it, but if you have a plan and you're trying to execute the stuff, then it's good. But I just think that, being out there and playing is really important, really important.
Yeah, and I would just like to add on to that. I mean, the two questions is, how important is playing tournaments? One of the things that comes to my mind is, my oldest son is almost 10. He's 9 years old, and he's a really good golfer. And we tried this season to not tell him his ranking in the area that we're in. We just didn't want him to even worry about it or focus on it. We wanted him to focus on playing the right way. Well, guess what happened? The third to last tournament of the year, his little buddy that he plays golf with comes up and tells him he's ranked number 1, in the section. And he happened to have, obviously, not coincidentally, he had to have the worst round of his little season. I mean, and it wasn't close. It was by far. And so that's the importance, in my opinion, of competing. The importance is learning how to deal with pressure. Now, if you can fabricate that pressure in practice, well, good job. You've done it. That's the idea. But you can't. Tournaments just mean more. And we had this conversation with my son. And, he ended up finishing the year pretty strong. But again, you can't replicate that in practice. And on the second question, how important is winning? I think it depends how you define winning. If you define winning as coming off the court the victor, then I would say the importance of that is negligible. If you define coming off the court feeling like you're making progress and you have that internal hope that what you're doing is right, whether you walk off the court, handing in the balls or not, I think that's everything. I think that is 100% everything, is you need to feel like you have this hope and you have this path forward to be the player and to achieve the dreams that you want to achieve, whether it's a college scholarship or whether it's winning Grand Slams. If you don't have that, I don't care if you're winning or not. It's going to be fleeting.
When does walking off the court the victor become important?
Well, it depends on your goals. So if your goal is college, walking off the court when you're 16, 17, winning a lot of matches is a big deal because that's what colleges care about. Whether they say that or not, that's what they care about. If you want to win Grand Slams, then obviously in Grand Slams. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that, the top three guys, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, their performance in Masters Series and lower don't equate to their performance in Grand Slams. So it just depends what your goal is and when that thing matters. I remember meeting a guy, when I was younger and coming up, and it was a total perspective enlightenment for me. And his goal was to be top 200 in the world. So those matches he was playing and trying to win was a big deal to him. You know what I mean? And it kind of hit me then that, man, people have different goals. Not everybody wants to win Grand Slams and so on and so forth.
Right. And Jenny, going back to the whole footwork and movement on the court, how do you guys train that? What specifically are you doing with the kids to help them get better?
Well, we do a lot of on-court. I mean, most of it is on-court. And between Taylor and I, through our own experience, the amount of training off-court that we did, we recognized that it didn't translate as much as we had hoped. So we like to take the kids through, whether it's on-court in drills that they're doing, where one side is running a lot more than the other, putting these kids through just body blow, where they're running side to side to side, things like that can be on court with live ball. In fitness, I actually run our fitness program right now, and I do a lot of explosive type of footwork. We do hurdles, we do just things that sort of load the legs up, and then we're trying to explode through positions. Sometimes I even, I've gone through and studied some things that basketball players have done. I just think that there's a similarity between, the ability to get out of a corner, to be able to decelerate and then accelerate, in a different direction. We do a lot of that. I do that sometimes personally with or privately, I should say, in on like one-on-one, training sessions with certain players if they request it. We just spend a lot of time doing exercises that mimic as closely as possible, tennis type of movement, short distances, nothing too long. Occasionally I will do a longer day with more of endurance, just to make sure that they get that in as well. We do a ton of abs because even though abdominals don't seem like they're related to footwork, having a really strong core is very important to be able to react, move quickly, change direction, keep your extremities, as you will, in tight and not sort of, compensate, and you potentially get injured down the road of a wide ball or something like that. So, I just use the experience that Taylor and I have and Phil and, learning from all the trainers that we've we've trained with and watching them. I mean, even just, learning from the ones that I see online now and that are out there. And, Phil just got back from Dubai with Misha Kichmenovich working on his serve. And he was able to watch Tsitsipas and Kichmenovich and Kachanov train. And so, he was sort of giving me some information from that and just sort of saying, this is what they were doing. And, it's just very similar to what you're doing and yada, yada, yada. So, we really just try and make the fitness as efficient as possible in that way.
A hot topic right now is early specialization and adult type injuries in young athletes. And, this is something that is being discussed everywhere as youth sports become bigger and bigger business. And, we're seeing kids specialize younger and younger and develop these really devastating injuries at young ages. How do you guys approach that whole kind of philosophy around early specialization? Because tennis in the last, maybe 15, 20 years has become a sport where people are convinced that they have to play tennis and only tennis starting, by age 6 if they want to have any chance of succeeding. And I'm just curious how, as coaches and, former players yourselves, how you approach that with your students.
Well, I think that, injuries are caused from a variety of factors, and a few of them are controllable. And I think with any sport, but I think more tennis than anything else is the danger there is imbalance, right? We use one side a certain way so many times. So, if you're doing some off-court training for injury prevention, not necessarily performance, but for injury prevention, man, we're all about it. Absolutely all about it, because trying to stop that imbalance in the muscles from the right to left side or minimize it, because I'm not sure you can stop it. I think there's always going to be a stronger side versus a weaker side in a tennis player, but minimizing that imbalance is absolutely huge.
And how do you address that with the parents? How do you convince them that this is really important? Because let's face it, a teeny tiny minuscule percentage of kids are going to wind up making a living playing tennis. Most of them are going to go on to other jobs and careers. And, the thought of a 30-year-old walking around looking like they're 70 is really sad, but it happens.
No, it does happen. And I think, and I don't think you can change the second one. This isn't an imbalanced one. But here in the U.S., we play a ton of matches, ton of points, ton of repetitions on hard courts, and I don't think that's the easiest thing on the knees and the hips. And when you're talking about having issues when you're in your 30s, when you're in your 40s, that's kind of what we're talking about. So that one's a little bit tough. And I would just say, if I was to talk to a parent about injury prevention and longevity of just wealth, not even about being a tennis player, just longevity of health. Then you have to acknowledge that, man, you get beat up on a hard court. Any parent that's played tennis, knows when they go on a hard court, it just, the knees hurt and the hips hurt. Maybe the back hurts, something like that. So going swimming, doing some band exercises, doing some alternative type exercises like Pilates or something like that, that's not really as impactful as tennis. I think it's a big deal, and it can only help. I mean, look, the stronger the muscles are around all of the joints, the less chance you are to be injured. Injuries happen because either there's a weakness or obviously the joint can get overextended. But I'm just talking about, muscle injuries. Either there's a weakness or there's fatigue, and, fatigue is kind of another way of saying weakness. That thing got tired and it shouldn't have got tired and we got hurt, So I think that, it's a big deal. It's just, it's tough, how hard is it? These kids here, I'll tell you the reality. The reality is this: these kids get up. What time do they get up to go to school in the morning? 6:30.
Right.
If they got to be at school at 7:30, then they get out of school at 3:30. They got to try and get 2.5 hours, 2 hours of tennis in at least. If we're talking competing for college scholarships, like Division I college scholarships, 2 hours of tennis every day, man, I don't know if that's enough for 99% of the people. Obviously, we know people can do that, but I'd say they're in the minority. Okay, so let's just say we're getting 2 hours of tennis in, from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Now you got to go home, you got to shower, you got to have dinner, you got to do homework. When are we going to take care of our bodies? So if we're playing tennis to get college scholarships, I don't know. There's not much time in the day to take care of the body.
Right. It's tough. It's really tough. And it's a struggle, I think, that a lot of families are dealing with. And, they hear conflicting information and aren't sure who to believe. But I think everybody agrees that the last thing you want to see happen is for a kid to get injured and have to give up the sport. And the other thing we don't want to have happen is for the kid to burn out and give up the sport. How do you guys address that? Because I'm listening to the three of you. Each one of you is more passionate about this game than the next one. And I'm just wondering how do you ever get kids that come to you that are just feeling on the verge of burnout and quitting? What do you tell them? How do you keep them coming back?
Well, for me, I'll let everybody else give their 2 cents. But for me, the first answer is what we talked about before: is make it as fun as possible. It's not always going to be fun. It's not going to be fun every day. I mean, when all of the smoke is cleared, we're out here working our butts off to get better and to either get a scholarship or to try and go pro. That's what we're doing. But that can be augmented by just having a little bit of brevity out there, a little bit of fun, a little bit of good times out there. And when you do get a kid that's kind of back up against the wall, down and out type of thing, the reality is life. Life always gives us our biggest surprises, our biggest bonuses, our biggest achievements, our biggest rewards when we're down and out. Are you willing to stick it out? Are you willing to fight it out? You know what I mean? And I know that I've experienced that. There's been times where I've thought about quitting tennis. In fact, I don't know many pro players that haven't thought about quitting tennis. I mean, look at David Ferrer. His story is fabled in the tennis world. You know what I mean? If you're willing to just tough it out, there's always a bright side. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, even though you may not see it.
Phil, what's your take on the whole issue of burnout and keeping these kids coming back?
It's a tough question. I mean, burnout, the kids either done it to themselves or the parents have helped along the way. And burnout, it's got to be controlled by, I think, the parents and the coaches a little bit. I think the kid will do whatever is necessary for them to want to win, but I think you've got to have, because they are young and they don't realise what they're going through physically, and mentally. I mean, it's a hard game to go out there and to put yourself out there and try your best and lose. It becomes real personal, and I think that that's when I think parents really help, and I think coaches can help put it in more of a perspective where you talked about winning and losing. I think getting off the court and knowing that you competed. I mean, I played a lot of matches, and I was okay with it if I knew that I competed, and we all have our different ideas of what competing means, and putting in a full effort and doing the right thing, whatever it may be to each individual. I think the burnout comes when the kid doesn't have any help, and they're getting frustrated, and either the coach isn't helping or the parents are pushing too hard. I think that's where burnout comes. I think the injury problem is you're playing on a real tough surface. I think that's got to be monitored all the way along. I think that and the exercises that now to say that I see that I went over, as Jenny said, I went to Dubai and I watched these guys train and play over the course of 2 weeks. I think what Jenny's doing with her training is very, very similar, and these guys don't want to get hurt. So they're playing on hard courts. They were practicing on hard courts. They weren't practicing on grass or clay. They were playing full, sessions, 4 hours a day on hard court. So they had their ways of dealing with all that stuff. They took a half a day off, or the exercises that they were doing were made to make sure that their muscles were strong and they had the agility and all the stuff that was going on in their body to accommodate all the pressure that goes on. It's not only the pounding that the body takes; it's the mental pressure. There was a guy called Roy Emerson. He won Wimbledon 3 times, and I grew up. He's a bit older than me. He was sort of like an Australian guy. You guys may have heard of him. He was a pretty good player.
I actually just had the pleasure of meeting him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Emma's a great guy. But
yeah,
when he was preparing to play slams, he used to play 7 sets a day. He used to play 7 sets.
Wow.
And when I asked him, I said, "Why are you playing 7 sets?" I was a kid, he was in his mid-late 20s, and I was a teenager. I said, "Why would you play 7 sets?" He said, "Well, the 7 sets really is for the mental anguish that I go through, that I have to deal with. So if I'm going to win a slam, I've got to play 7 matches." And that's what he would do. Now, that doesn't suit everybody. It was one of the very few guys that I ever met that played that many sets before, a slam. But everyone deals with the whole thing differently. And I think just the monitoring the kids, helping them understand what winning and losing is and what competing is. And competing, if you compete hard, you're going to get your wins. That's for sure. And you're going to be much more satisfied with what you're doing. That's my take. Jennifer.
And Jenny, what about you?
I would say, and the students that I've worked with who seem, more down and out than others, or who feel, I feel like they've either lost their way, which to me means that they don't believe in the direction that they're going, or they don't understand it. And similar to Phil, like he said that they're not getting the help with that. I think we have to make sure that the students understand, they have to believe in what they're trying to do on the court, and understand and recognize the silver linings when, maybe they don't execute the way that they want to. We tell the students all the time that execution is actually not something that you can control. So many times we ask these students, okay, well, what is your goal today for this match? What are you going to work on? What are you going to do? And they say, well, I want to play well. And I say, well, that's great, but you don't have control of that. I need to know really what is tangible. What can you control? A lot of times and we all do it. I mean, and this is who we are. We're human. We like to wallow in our misery. We like to, it's hard to pull ourselves out. I mean, it takes a very disciplined, mature, seasoned and motivated player or person to pull themselves out of a rut. And so I think it's trying to change their perspective, to show them the good, show them, all the things that they are doing well or what they can control, and just try and change their focus. Because so many times it's just a perspective change, especially that can, if the parents understand that as well, they can help so much at home, build a mentality of learning how to just compete and value competing. Because I tell the kids all the time, I said, you look at like Rafael Nadal and that match, the final at the U.S. Open, and the guy just doesn't go away. And the amount of pressure that puts on your opponent, if you just come forward every single point and all you worry about is that individual point and putting your best foot forward mentally and physically, you can't ask any more from yourself. And sometimes the kids underestimate, even, if they think, well, I didn't win the point. Well, that's really not the bigger picture. The bigger picture is, you've made this other person work really hard to win a point. And now they're under the pressure to have to do that every single point. And if you just win, 53, 54, 56% of the points, you're going to have a pretty successful career. I mean, a lot of those kids think, well, it's just, if I've put in the hard work, and if I, can play this ball exactly the way I want to play, I want to put it in the corner 2 feet from the line, and I want to have it this kind of spin. And, if it doesn't go exactly the way they want to, they think it's a loss. They think they've failed. And I'm saying, no, like, you're still on the point. Maybe you didn't hit it where you wanted to, but the intention was there, and that's more important than the execution, because the execution will come and go. There will be days when you come out and it's just happening. It's flowing. It's easy to work hard when everything's going in. It's fun. You can't. It's just easy. It's the days when you come out and you are having a hard time fighting the court, when you're having to fight mentally. Those are the days when you can actually improve more if you embrace that, if you see that as an opportunity to get better and not as, a failure that day. It's just teaching these kids, changing their perspectives, teaching them the long road, and not, sort of the sprint. It's a marathon to get to be a good player. It is not a single, sprint. It's not how you do in one tournament. I mean, count the number of tournaments you play. I don't even know, if anyone could even count that. There's so many tournaments over the course of a career, and if you do poorly in one, it's okay. You shrug it off. Let's work on what we didn't do well, and let's get back out there and try again. And they say all the time, you only fail when you stop trying. So I tell the kids all the time, it's just a perspective change, and we just have to teach them to see the game in sort of a longer term. We're trying to get to we're trying to reach a potential when we're 17 or when we're 18, depending on what your goals are. Let's play our best tennis then. Let's not play it right now. It takes time to build that kind of game.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have shared some incredible wisdom. Thank you. I know it's been a long day for you, and I so appreciate you coming online and doing this after being on the court all day long. For people that want to get more information on your academy or want to reach out to you guys, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I guess the first step would be, thebirch.com. The Birch is the tennis club, the tennis facility that we're building out in Keller, Texas. It's like kind of in between Fort Worth and Dallas. And the Dent Tennis Academy is like a sub category on that website. So thebirch.com will get you there. And at the end of the day, we appreciate it. I mean, we love talking about this stuff. We talk about it all the time. And obviously, like any coach, we're super opinionated, and we have our strong beliefs. And so, we love it. We're passionate about it.
That's fantastic. We will have a link to your website in the show notes on ParentingAces.com. So for the listeners, if you didn't get what Taylor said, thebirch.com, or you're not sure how to spell it, no worries. Just go to ParentingAces.com and we'll have a link there for you. You guys, I just wish you continued success. I love talking with you, Taylor, as always. And Phil and Jenny, it's a pleasure meeting you and hearing from you as well. And my gosh, the enthusiasm and the experience that you guys bring to the game are just phenomenal.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And happy holidays to y'all. This isn't airing until the new year, but I want to be sure and wish you a happy holiday with your family and just enjoy Thanks again. And to my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And we will catch you next time on Parenting Aces. I'm Lisa Stone, and you've been listening to the Parenting Aces Podcast. For tennis parents, by a tennis parent. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to us and write a review on iTunes. For more information on navigating the junior and college tennis journey, please visit us online at ParentingAces.com. Thanks for tuning in and sharing us with your tennis community.